Welcome, everyone. This is once again your host, Shailesh from New Zealand World News and emotional well-being topics that we always bring to you. And we always have a theme called Life Journeys of Real People, Real Humans, Real Speakers, sharing their real experiences and real wisdom. And one I have found today, one of the most amazing person whose life journey we are going to uncover. She is actually um, she's a sex and spirit alchemist of a feminine-led life. She's an award-winning speaker. She's a coach. She's helping humans. But most importantly, her life journey has been where she is today. And we're going to uncover that life journey, why, how, what she went through, her positive mindsets that she has changed, as we all humans do. But talking with the real people, sharing their real experiences is really more exciting because we learn a lot from each other. And that's the whole idea about this life journey. Life journey is affects impacts to everyone and anyone because we all are humans. And our journey is quite similar, but quite different because we are quite unique in our nature. That's the way it is. So welcome, Lorna. She's
Mhm.
from British Columbia, Western Canada, and absolutely amazing and thrilled to talk to you, Lorna, because this excited me. Okay, sex and spirit alchemist. How does sex and spirit goes together? Which is another day, another topic. But let's understand from your life journey where you are and how you brought to this situation. So welcome, Lona, for this beautiful episode of our life journey. And we would like you to invite you on this podcast and episode. Tell us something about you first, a little bit about you, and then we will dive into your life journey, where and how Lona was as a child. We'll start from
Mhm.
there, but let's talk a little bit about you. Tell us.
All right. Good to be here with you, Shailesh, and I'm excited for this conversation, and I'm curious to see what will be uncovered. There might be some things here that I haven't thought about for a while, so I'm looking
Yeah.
forward to diving in with you.
Mhm.
So yeah, you're correct. I'm here in Western Canada, in British Columbia, and we've just had our first snowfall of the year, so that's gonna
Ah,
be fun to play in that. And yeah, so a little bit about me where I'm at right now. I am immersed in not only the mountains, but also in family. I'm living here with one of my
mhm.
two birth daughters. I have another one by marriage, and I have four grandchildren here, and two that live away from my bonus grandchildren as well. So, family is really important to me. My husband's away for some work things, and
Mhm.
so I get to be immersed in family, and that's an important piece for me. Um,
Mm.
yeah, watching my grandchildren grow up. Being a mom was one of the things that I was a
Yeah.
key thing for me that I loved doing. So I get to be immersed now with my family and of the generation. So it's really a beautiful thing.
No, that's amazing. Yeah, you're in the most beautiful spot in the nature, just like I wanted to be in that spot, but that's great. Beautiful. And what a life journey you are having at the moment. Like when there is nothing better called, as we say, with the loved ones, no matter whether they are child or they are friends or family or whatever, but they are all loved ones. And we humans have got this amazing. So not everybody gets to have that kind of life. So I feel that it's a great blessing for everyone and anyone who gets this opportunity to, be with your family and friends. So
Mhm.
let's get dive into it. So what was Lona as a child? What do you remember since you became conscious about what were the attributes or what were you environment? What was the environment that grew up in that
Mhm.
made you who you are today? Tell me
Sure.
something about.
Um, I think one of my earliest memories that I have was when I was 3 years old and being at my babysitter's.
Hmm.
Um, so, and then going forward, I remember I grew up on an acreage, 20 acres in a rural property, a little tiny house with our 8 family members, my
Mm.
parents and 6 kids.
Right.
Uh, so I grew up really in the outdoors, in our on our property, playing in the gravel. I remember very distinctly, squatting down and, just having my underwear on and playing in
Mhm.
the dirt and watching with just delight and joy of, I could take a stick and make a little trench into the dirt and the gravel and then watch the water down there and reroute it. So those are some of the memories that I remember. Um, I was the fourth of six children.
Mhm.
So I had my two older sisters and an older brother, a younger sister and a younger brother. And it was directly, I would say, my older brother and my younger sister, they're
Mhm.
closest to me in age. So the different adventures that we had growing up that way. So I certainly the neighborhood kids. I remember playing baseball,
Mhm.
we get together and play baseball together. Um,
So
yeah,
what?
yeah,
So
and being
that's
adventuresome. I remember just adventure, like
Mhm.
climbing and just that
Mhm.
exploration, that curiosity. So that was a big key that I remember growing up.
Right. That's what I was about to touch. Actually, you said me the answer. So I probably heard me what I was trying to ask you. That how was you as an intuition, and how was you as like being living with many siblings? A few siblings. How was the competitiveness mind, or what when you grew up in that environment? Were you like competitive? Were you like, okay, I want to achieve this, or I want to show this that I can do better than you, and this can do. We as a kids, we are always competitive with each other, but also we as a kids, we grew up with a different kind of nature. Oh no, whatever you do, I support you, I love you, and we grew up in that environment. So there are different things that kids do at different, different environment. How was it for you in terms of if I were to ask you, how was your relationships with all the siblings and the environment, and what was the values that you came up with or brought up with, basically?
Mm, great question. There's 6 years between my oldest sister and myself, then 5 years between my next sister. So when I look at that, it was always um, my older sisters were almost like big sisters, almost like a not a second mom, but
But
that
yeah. Mm,
figure there to be not just as a sibling, but they were there as wiser older people. And
mm,
and it seems like I've always had from early childhood on um, this ability to communicate with older people.
mm,
And so them being older, that just was a natural thing to enjoy being together with them as well.
mm.
Um, and yeah, that
So,
was a big piece. And even to this day, my oldest sister is one of my close friends. So it's
mm.
really a neat piece.
So did you
And
had
you
anything like as a child, we want to become when we grow up, I want to do this, I want to become this. When you had any of
know,
those kind of things as well?
for myself, I wanted to be grow up to be a nurse. I remember
Mm,
that.
okay.
And so I ended up being the family nurse. Somebody got an owie and I would be the one to clean it and
Mm,
put the bandage on. So I loved that. I loved that. There seemed to be um, that
mm.
proclivity, if you will, to care and to
Right.
support people's wellness from an early age. When I got married, and I was married at the age of 18, I didn't go on to be a nurse. By that time, I just wanted to be a mom. And so
Mm,
we had our family early, and I got to be a stay-at-home mom for the first 12 years, 8, 10 years of their
mhm.
lives. So yeah.
Wow. Well, that's good. So how was that change or transform? But is it like your mindset was attuned and aligned with what you didn't feel any missed out or in that period because
Mm,
having that gap, how was it your mind? And
yeah, it's a really great question. You have really great questions. I don't feel like I had any sense of missing out at all. I don't feel like
mm,
there was anything that I wanted and that I couldn't do.
mm,
There may be there's certain things at the time, but as I look back, there's nothing that thinks,
mm,
oh, I remember that was just no, I wasn't allowed to or I couldn't. I would say that um, I mean, watching my mom, I know she modeled that thing of being home, and
mm.
a
Yeah.
caring mother that was present. And I
Okay.
remember as a child, she played piano, and I remember as a young child
Hmm.
sitting on the floor playing with my toys uh, while she was playing the piano, and just kind of, wow, she's the most beautiful woman in the whole world. That was
Mm,
that piece. So it was pretty despite a big family, it felt
Mm.
like we were very close. Even to this day, we're
Mm.
still all really close. My mom passed almost 3 years ago now,
Right.
but the rest are just really, really close. And so, yeah, there wasn't, I don't remember that sense of competitiveness even when you asked about that earlier. My younger sister, there's 2 years difference between us. And I remember that piece of fighting and we'd pull each other's hair and pull, and we were, that type of a thing. But to this day, we're,
Meaning like
dear
even competitive,
friends. So
or like
it's,
you can call another word is
those
like,
were
what
just,
are the challenges that you had? If I want to put it this way, what are the challenges you had during that period where, you are managing your kids, you got married early, but it's a situation where at one point you may think, oh, I wish I would have done that or this way or that way, but there could be some challenges, but you had help, support, which is great, but still when it comes to oneself, we do have our own kind of struggles and our own kind of challenges. Did
mhm,
you feel that you had something, but then you realized and then you made those changes or in your mind to deal with it or to manage with it? Was there anything that remembers or stands out for you?
mhm. Uh, it's there. I don't know that this really specifically answers it, but I'm going to respond to it with this
Yeah.
and how then that has played out over
Mm,
the years. I
mm,
remember as I was in my teens that like I didn't really have any, there was maybe one or two boyfriends. Like it wasn't
mhm, mhm,
that type of a thing. I like didn't like me. And so it was just kind of, I'd see all my girlfriends, going off and being with guys and stuff like that. And so I remember this feeling of rejection, like nobody wants me.
mm,
And so dealing with that. And then interestingly, the man who I end up marrying was
mm,
one of the ones who had been in the big popular group. And it's kind of, so it was
mm.
sort of an interesting twist of, you know,
Yeah.
it was a really different twist where why me? So it
Mm.
was nobody wants me, but why me? And to be able to look at how that unfolded over the years,
Mhm,
I would say it reinforced what I've come to experience and to realize, Shailesh, is that there's this thread that's woven from the time that
yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
the the thought of us, right? Or that whole piece where it's woven together and there's everything along the way will reinforce at different situations, different people will reinforce,
Mm,
that if that's to be our challenge, if
mm,
that's to be our challenge, then there's going to be people that
mm.
will reinforce that place that somehow nobody wants me or why me?
Right.
Who am I?
Mm,
And different things on totally different realms sometimes,
mm,
where it's just reinforced. And I've just really come to appreciate the beauty of the intricacy of that story creation, if you will,
mhm,
so the story of Lorna and how all of these different characters and
mm.
themes and traumas and stuff have all reinforced this little thread that sort of weaves through.
Wow. Okay. So was there any kind of a moment where you felt I had to change drastically my mindset? Was there anything like that that happened in your journey as a teenage or after teenage, that's something you realize that no, I need to change this because this is not something that I'm liking or loving it or enjoying it or need some change? Because every time you have this mind saying that okay, I'm happy enjoying, but then I want something that extra excitement. Was there
Mhm.
anything in a moment in your life after teenage or after getting married or
I,
after
I
you
would say it was later. I would say, and again,
yeah.
really a beautiful question. I would
Mm,
say it happened later on because I was so much, and growing up in a religious home, I
mm,
was very much taught, conditioned,
mm,
modeled to this
correct.
aspect of the woman is for the man.
That's right.
So it become this natural thing, save yourself for marriage. I did.
Mm,
I was a good girl.
mm,
So this aspect of the man as the head of the household
mm,
and um, and even as I've talked about it, that, and we'll talk about this more, I know, when we have our other
Yeah.
conversations,
Yeah.
but this aspect of, so this sense of, oh, that I most wasn't even in this place of what I'll call sovereignty over my own beingness. It was just, you
Mm.
know, I'm supposed to look for somebody else for, you know, to tell me what I'm supposed to do. And I remember about 12 years ago, one of my friends said, "You live by so many rules," you
Right.
know, and so
Like
because so
boundaries.
that's right. So if, you know, if it comes from teachers and preachers and
Mm.
parents, you know, to be able to say these are the rules, it's kind of okay. Am I fitting in there? Am I doing it right? Am I doing it right?
Mm.
Um, and I would say one of the times where it really had opportunity to really step out of that was, we had, my husband and I, we had one of our children already, one of our daughters, and I was expecting the second one. And we had moved from one part of Canada to another part of of Canada, and
Mhm.
we had moved because one of our friends, they were moving to that same city, and they were going to be preachers in the church. And so we
Right.
said, well, they helped to move us, so let's go to the church that they go to.
Mm.
And we stayed there for a while, but I just started to realize, no, this is not the church that I want to grow up to raise our daughters in. And that was, I would say, the very first time where I stood up and said to my husband, no, we're doing something different. We're going to go to a different church. And so that was a very, probably my first time where I really did that. And interestingly, that it was in the context of a church as well, where I
Mhm.
just really
Right.
said no. So, but that was, I would say, where I really felt, no, this is the direction for our family. We're going to go. This is where we're going to go. And, you know, my husband later on, you know, talked about when it was time for those big decisions, it was me that made those decisions. So that was interesting to hear him reflect that back to me.
Mm. Right. And
That
that
was
is
one of the,
that is the beauty of one's journey, that when we take those hardcore decisions at that time, we don't know what's the outcome is going to be,
Mhm,
but we still
mhm.
have to take those decisions.
Yeah.
And that is what I wanted to touch on, that basically.
Mhm,
How those challenges that you may have faced, those environment and those, that not everybody wants to take the responsibility. They want to take the credits, but not the responsibility. It's very human. It's easy,
mhm,
subconscious. But when you take decisions, then you are ready to face the consequences as well.
mhm,
And
mhm.
somebody has to do that, right?
That's true. That's true. Which is, as you say, it's interesting because we don't really even know what the consequences are. We can think about them. We can try to figure them out. If I do this, this will happen. This, it's kind of like, who's to
Mm.
say, right?
Yeah. Yeah, and this is
Yeah.
what I will come to the later part of the conversation, because I'm loving this, your challenges with kids, with younger mindset as a marriage, then going into a situation where, you took some decisions. So your environment, if I have to ask you for all the listeners, normally it's very easy for us to get victim of our environment. So whatever environment teaches us, we go by that. But then there
Mhm,
are some humans who say, okay, we are in a good environment or bad environment, but we are in an environment which I want to change to look what will be my environment, what I want.
mhm,
Did you find anything at that time? Because today you are a coach, and I'm reflecting this back on purpose, that how did you transition yourself to a guiding coach for all the women that probably are, you know, taking a lot of benefits from your experiences and all that,
mhm,
especially in the need of the hour for many women who doesn't understand their own self and how to gain that confidence or reclaim their own power. But here
mhm,
you are raising kids on your own with big family, living in that environment with, we may say, oh, I don't know how whether you had challenges or not, but you know best. So in terms of that, did you had those kind of transition? How did you transition yourself from those moments? What you are, how did you change your mindsets?
mhm,
That's what I
mhm.
want to touch on.
Yeah, really great. I would say one of them happened, I'm going to say 25 years ago, 20 years
Mm-hmm.
ago.
Mm-hmm.
One of my nieces was being married and my sister was reading out. So I'm going to back up a little bit.
Yeah.
I'm going to use the metaphor of the frog, a frog that is put into a pot of water, and where it's slowly brought to a boil, that frog will
Mm-hmm.
die.
Mm-hmm.
Take a frog and toss it into a pot of boiling water, and it jumps out immediately.
Mm-hmm.
So now, here, how do I connect into that? It was when my niece was being married, and my oldest sister was reading out something from the 1950s, 1960s home ec
Okay.
um, book, right? About the role of a wife and how she's supposed to be. And so here she's reading.
Mm.
Uh, you are making sure that the house is clean when your husband arrives home. You get his slippers out, you have his newspaper ready, you have pressed your dress and apron so it's all clean and tidy. The food is cooking in the dinner in the oven so it smells good when he comes in. And you
Mm.
are to ask him about his day, but do not share anything about what's
Mm.
happened in your days. And I remember the people around were just laughing, laughing. And I sat there with tears running down my face because I thought, that's what I've lived. I thought
Mm.
that's what I was supposed to be.
Mm.
And I would say that that was one of the things that really started to awaken me to
Mm-hmm.
my role as a woman, as a wife.
Mm.
That, when we're this way, if we think that's the only way there is.
Yeah,
And
yeah, true.
when we've been taught that that's the right way, we don't dare look anywhere else, right? Because that's bad. So I think that was a big part of it. And and then uh, again, this whole idea of save yourself for marriage,
Mm.
I didn't realize until, in this last 15 years since my midlife sexual awakening,
Mm.
that how much that admonition, when I took it in, it was taken in at the level that my body isn't mine, my sexuality isn't mine, and boundaries, what are those?
Mm.
And so my sex life, because my husband and I didn't know any better, we
Mm.
didn't know I
Mm.
didn't know about my body. I hadn't explored it. And
Mm.
so when I went through, 30 years of marriage and very disconnected from my sexuality,
Mm.
um, had my first orgasm at the age of 42, so it was just a real disconnection.
Mm.
So after I started to, with the gift of a health crisis, started my spiritual journey, when
Mm.
my girls were out of the home, it felt like it was time for me to start exploring, who am I as a sexual erotic being? So I
Mm.
took different courses and trainings and retreats and workshops to explore what's this world beyond what I had known.
Mm.
And it ended up that when I found and I had my midlife sexual awakening, that I went on then to take my love of teaching and my gift of teaching, first of all in the school system and then in energy work, now into the sexual erotic realm of things. And and my husband at the time said, it doesn't really work for me that you're doing this work.
Mm.
What do you want?
Mm.
Do you want to stay in the marriage, or do you want this new life? And as I felt into it, it really felt like the marriage had served its purpose, like a
Mm.
tree that becomes root bound in a pot. It was
Mm.
time for me to be transplanted into this new
Mm.
way of being. And so that was, I said, it's time for me to take flight and head on. And so he blessed, whatever you need to do, I bless you. Saw him yesterday, him and his wife, and
Mhm.
just, we blessed, and it really was the best journey for both of us, for the whole family, really. Even though there was that period of adjustment when we weren't
Mm.
this
Mm.
unified four family,
Yeah.
it was an expanded family.
This is amazing. So I want to ask you on this question, and all the listeners would love to hear from you that, when you take such decisions or when you discover and when you uncover yourself or discover yourself, that, okay, this is what now I've discovered about my new, who I am as a human, who I am as a this. But then many people are fearless. They are not fearless. They are fearful of the decisions that they take on such
Mhm.
things. Taking that decision for you, so you moved from fearful to fearless in my way of understanding. how do you feel after taking the decision? Whether it is right, wrong, it's not. As you said, it turned out good, they are happy, they all good, and you well. But at that moment, the world could fall apart just in your mind. It will fall apart. Physically may not, but it may in at that point. So all the listeners who are listening, is decisions like that to take at any given point as a coach? Now I'm asking you to take such decisions or drastic or decisions that are you don't know, and how can you trust that decision based on yourself? How would you say now, after taking the decision, or at that point when you took the decision, if all the listeners wants to know that is it good, bad, right? How would you describe this decision, that decision?
Mhm.
How would you describe it? It's not
Mhm.
about good, bad, right, wrong. It's about how do you describe it, basically.
Mhm. For me, I would say that I was compelled. It wasn't even a matter of right or wrong. It
Mm,
was, this is what I need to do. This is what I need to do. It was it was unquestionable. I didn't sit back and think, what am I going to do? It was just when I had that opportunity, and this is a big part of
mm,
my own world and what I
mm,
teach is I felt into it. And
mm,
that's where when I could feel into one option,
mm,
felt like I was dying, and the other one felt like life, and I chose life. And
mm,
it wasn't about
mm,
him or the marriage being wrong. It had served its purpose, which is for me to now to take the leap, to take flight into another experience, to another way of expressing and being who I am and viewing and being life.
Absolutely, absolutely. Yeah, that's what I will dive into this. That, some people say that you are educated, you are intelligent, you are wise, so you can take those decisions. And then there's other side of the coin is not academic, not intelligence, but it's pure, pure spiritual experience and the being who you are as a spiritual person.
Mhm,
The good old days of the days we don't even remember how and when this academy or the books came in to read for us to understand who we are, but it's already embedded in us, within all of us, to take some decisions that really resonates with us or matters with us. So
mhm,
that's where you then enter into the zone of spirituality. And this is where I wanted to touch on
mhm,
that I personally feel that those decisions that you took was more spiritual than more academic or more this. It was more who you are as a being, right? Ultimately.
mhm,
So tell me something about more about like this transition from spirituality, or we call it the spiritual journey of us as a human. We live both. We are spiritual, we are also academic, or we are also like life experiences.
mhm,
But then we present into two different formats, one to understand the so-called and one to understand the so-called. That's what I put it as. How would you describe this, your transition into spirits, and then putting this spirituality into this coaching of yours, which is the
mhm,
sexuality, the sex
mhm.
spirit? Let's talk on that.
Yeah, for sure.
Hmm.
25 years ago, I had the gift of a health crisis. I was teaching school in the school system at the time, and my body just started to say, show me that there was, first of all, laryngitis. And as a teacher, not really great. And
Yeah.
then my energy started to go down. And so, in between September and December, 4 times I had laryngitis, and my energy kept going down.
Hmm.
I had a conversation with my doctor as we were doing various tests, and I said,
Hmm.
I need to stay off for the rest of the year. So he said, absolutely, let's do that. So that became this journey of what's this about, and really diving in. And sometimes we have this sense that we're looking for, we're trying to find ourselves.
Hmm.
It's actually in those moments where synchronistic things, if you will, things show up,
Hmm.
and that those are the pieces that give us an awareness, or that are that missing piece, or that we've been looking for. And I think, even when I was at the library looking for something, I look up, I wasn't even looking for something, but a title on the shelf caught my eye.
Hmm.
And that ended up being just wow, this is interesting. I ended up opening it up, and wow, this is amazing. And it had all those pieces. So there was that. And in that time as well, I remember going to a health fair,
Mm.
and just to different booths and stuff. As I was coming out of there, somebody that I met, I have no idea who it was, but it seemed to me that I recalled them enough to say stop and say hi to them. And this woman said, "We are not humans having a spiritual experience. We're spiritual beings having a human experience."
Mm.
And when I heard that, I got really angry
Mm.
because that went that went totally against what I had been taught and raised in
Mm. Mm.
culturally. Because no, here's this journey. We're humans, and we're this quest to find our way back to
Mm.
God, to make that connection. Can I do the right thing? Can I stay on the straight and narrow?
Mm.
So
Mm.
that just totally blew my mind, for lack of a better word. It
Mm.
just really, what? And
Yeah.
that's what it felt like. That's what cracked things open to really be able to, wow.
Mm.
And that's where I really started to have just different spiritual awakenings that were happening, where
Mm.
this white light coming to me and through me and a part of me and never left, and realizing that's always been there. It's just
Mm.
these awakenings that starting to happen.
You're
And
right.
so when I had my midlife sexual awakening at the age of 47,
Mm-hmm.
I was in this struggle, if you will, because I had been taught, there's really sexuality and spirituality don't really go together,
Mm.
except in a very narrow way that we're taught. Other than
Mm.
that, really wrong and bad. And so starting this sexual journey and this awakening that happened, that fascinatingly, and I've been a poet since my teen years, but all of a sudden poetry just started being just flowing through me. And I would, oh, something's coming. I'd just get on my BlackBerry, my phone, and
Mm.
type, 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 type. And poetry just flowed out. And then after I finished typing, okay, it's done, I would go back and read what just came through.
Mm-hmm.
And interestingly, some of them were hot and steamy, sexual erotic poetry,
Mm-hmm.
really speaking to that vibrancy and of with a lover. And a lot of these poems, they weren't even really of my experience. They were
Mm.
just what was coming
Just
through
coming
about
to. Mm.
sexual erotic aspect of things. But
Mm-hmm.
more of them, most of them, really spoke to that aspect of what we have thought was two or separate.
Mm.
It's never been two. Whether we talk about, woman and man, the two shall become one, when they cleave together and in the
Mm.
sexual act. But it's this recognition, what I've come to experience more and deeper, more clearly in this embodied way, is that one is always one. There's
Mm.
only the illusion of separation.
Mm.
And so, in this journey of the story of who we are, the story of the human experience,
Mm.
let's take the oneness and create this sense that, oh, there's a woman and there's a man, different shapes, and this eternal quest to try to come back together and find our other half.
Mm.
And this journey to somehow do the right thing and somehow make this connection back, to make our way back to God, and God, however, and that was my upbringing.
Mm.
But what I've come to experience is that sex is that portal in our human experience. We use sex to come from spirit into the human experience.
Yeah.
And 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 so it then becomes this journey of experiencing and the different aspects of the human, to be able to feel through the different senses, to feel literally. We didn't have words, didn't we?
Mm.
Don't need words to feel. We
True.
just feel, and then we start to put words and labels to them.
Mm.
And so that's what I see is my first, all the way from birth, conception, up to the point where I had, I would say, my spiritual awakening, but my sexual awakening that happened into that journey of an experience of the oneness. That
Mm.
I would say that everything up until that point played its role in covering up,
Mm.
disguising, um,
Right.
creating the illusion of that oneness. And since then, it's been this opening to and the remembrance of an experience of the oneness of who we are. And so that's where, for me, it's been what was always one.
Mm.
Sexuality and spirituality
Mm.
has going as if they're separate and now coming back into this oneness, which, and I love doing that, because when I do that, it's actually that,
Mm.
of the vulva, right? It's that shape of
Yeah.
the sacred
Mm.
temple.
Yeah.
And so it's really coming back into that oneness of who we are. So when I talk about being a sex and spirit alchemist, it's really, how do we bring those two back together? How do we use our
Mm.
sexuality, all of our desires, all of our traumas, all of our connections and disconnections about sexuality and intimacy and relationship? How do we use all of that as a
Mm.
portal back into that remembrance of our wholeness, of our oneness?
Mm. Wow. That's beautifully explained. But also, just on that, we always have a battle or a mind boggling debates that when we talk about like whether the simple example, like, oh, which egg is the first came or the chicken came first? It's like this, is the body is in the spirit or is it the spirit in the body? What is it? This is where people have been like trying to give their reasoning or understanding their way of on. But you said very beautifully, like, we do because we have been taught in a certain way. We think in a certain, but what we experience is what we only know, and we can't justify anyone. We don't have to justify anyone, to be honest.
Mm-hmm.
So
Mm-hmm.
I love your analogy of how to bring those sexuality and spirit together and why it means they both are important. Just like the chicken and
Mm-hmm.
egg, they both are important. Just like the spirit
Right.
and body, they both are important.
Mm-hmm.
Without each other, they are nothing on their own. But it's so important to disclose that. So, in your world now that you see, so one is the activity of like, okay, sexuality, or when we have this topic, we know it is the root, it is the source of evolvement of humans, basically. But then we also talk about it like, okay, the importance and the spirits that comes, that who we are as a spirit, and why do we need to be, doing all these things together. However, in your world, how do you define now that you are already a coach? So when it comes to spirits, and then people talk about spirits, and then they have lots of relationships with the spirits as a human. We do have a relation with them as well. And then they can feel and they can see and they can, how do you say this to as a spirit and sex both, but as a human and spirit and human and sex? How would you explain this a little bit? Your theory, your analysis of human spirit, sex, human sex, spirit. So this is
Mm-hmm.
something I want to learn, to be honest.
um, I would say that it really comes back to uh, feeling, being connected to this body as that
Right.
instrument, that receptive aspect. And when we have been taught from early on,
Mm.
um, sometimes intentionally and sometimes just through life's happenings,
Yep.
inadvertently, but we have been taught to look outside of ourselves.
Mm.
So look outside of yourself for God or that higher power. Look outside of yourself for a partner, for pleasure, for authority, for permission.
Mm.
Look outside. We're always looking, what's out there next, right? We're
Mm.
taught to look outside of
Mm.
ourselves.
Mm.
And even aspects of, do unto others,
Mm.
or it's better to give than to receive. Um, I am my brother's keeper, the sense of being responsible for.
Mm.
And in the process as well, that the 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 beauty of that, and as I say, by divine design, the
Mm.
beauty of that is where we're so busy looking out there that we forget what's happening in here, both in terms of the divinity that's happening within and
Mhm.
being expressed through this, but also the ability to feel. So sometimes we've been taught, guys have been taught, toughen up,
Mm.
big boys don't cry,
Mm.
don't be a
True.
sissy. So
Yeah.
shut down these feelings. So that's a big part when I work with men, is
Mm.
how do I support them in feeling those emotions that arise? Can
Mm.
they let themselves even soften in and feel the touch on the body? to be able to just relax without any, it's not about, any, it's simply about just, can they let themselves feel and let the emotion rise up, and to know that it's okay to feel that. Women have often been taught, don't be sexual, don't
mm,
feel those urges, unless
mm,
it's in a right proper container. Be the
mm,
good girl.
mm,
And so in many ways, all of us have been taught, and for women as well,
mm,
anger, I think that's for most people, is it's not
mm,
good to feel anger. So on many ways and in many levels, we've been taught to not feel. So when I work with people, I say, it's time to feel. Let's go in bit by bit. Some things don't feel safe to feel, sometimes because there's that protective
mm,
wall around. It has not been, um, it's been too dangerous, or um, yeah, it's not been a safe place. So not feeling has
mm,
been a way to shelter in from trauma, from to try to keep things safe.
mm,
And so I take people in so that they can start to feel at home in their own bodies,
mm.
to know that their bodies are a safe place to be. And
Right.
then from there, they can, and this is a big part of where my work with consent comes, is consent isn't yes or no.
Mm,
It's actually, consent comes from an expression of what is felt
mm,
within.
mm,
And then it happens. And so that's where my journey is, really supporting people and coming back into themselves. From there, then when it comes to connecting in that presence that's there, great, you're connecting to your aspect of the essence of who
mm,
you are, that
mm.
spirit of who you are that lives and breathes you.
Yeah.
And then from that place of feeling that oneness within, that at homeness in the body,
Mm,
that's when interactions with people, whether it's in an intimate relationship, whether it's a workplace situation, whether it's just day-to-day things, it's
mm.
coming from within. And so all relationships now are coming from what I'll call an empowered place, an embodied place.
Right.
And so it doesn't even have to be this. It can be just
Mm,
now this aspect of, I don't have to think about it. It doesn't feel true for me. It doesn't
mm.
feel right for me, because we're coming in from what feels true inside.
Yeah, and that's the disconnection lots of people have basically is like whether we should act, react, or we should really feel and automatically let it happen, basically. Those two
Mm-hmm.
different aspects of life journey. So tell me something about in your life journey after these your own experiences that you have been telling us. Tell me something that what one message you would like to give to all the listeners who are listening currently through your life journey that you think that it will, at least have a moral obligation or a duty or a sense of responsibility to tell me and the listeners that, okay, this is what I feel, or it's in your words, that we all struggle and we all come with certain aspects, but then uncovering and, finding yourself is how to find in your own words or in one way. How would you like to describe that?
Mm. I'm going to create a bit of a picture here.
Hmm.
I'm sitting in this dark room, relaxed back in a chair, and I have this big uh, a big bag of popcorn.
Hmm.
And I'm sitting there enthralled with what I see on the screen. And I am just in it. I'm feeling all the feels. I'm feeling stuff, wondering what's going to happen next, and starting to see different connections.
Mm,
And in the midst of it, I'm like sometimes wide-eyed, sometimes I jump. And then little by little, all the threads start to make sense, and kind of, oh, now I get it. Okay.
mm. Right.
Into that place where, wow, lights start to come up, and get up out of my seat, and I walk out of the theater. That in the midst of that movie, in the midst of that movie, I was just there. There was no other world. I was just there in
Mm,
it all. And I
mm,
would say that that's my invitation, that when we're in the midst of living this life in our day-to-day things, those
Mm-hmm.
ups, those downs, those challenges that seem so intense. Am I ever going to get through that?
Mm-hmm.
Is to be able to allow for that perspective that can allow us to, in our wholeness, in the spirit of who we are, to be able to see our life's journey that has unfolded and the different people and situations, those places where we have those traumas, where I feel like that emotion comes up, and to be able to have that perspective that says, what an incredible,
Mm-hmm.
incredible unfolding story I am. This
Mm-hmm.
story that is rich with
Mm-hmm.
feeling, with adventure, with relationships, with traumas, with mountaintop experiences and the valleys and the river that flows through it all.
Wow, beautifully said as a poem, but it's amazing. That's what who we are, that we can uncover so many things with just being ourselves. And we can be present everywhere and anywhere we want. And that's an amazing kind of a explanation that you gave today. So, all the listeners who are listening today, this is Lorna, who has given her life perspectives and journey, a life journey that we were speaking. But more importantly, as you see, the importance of our spirit, who we are as a spirit, who we are as our sexuality, which is quite, we often talk about humanity, we often talk about every other aspects of a human, but this human aspect of sexuality is equally important to live our life every single moment. So, Lorna, thank you so much for this amazing conversation that we are having today. And I think we need to come back to with your more in-depth knowledge about the spirit, the sexuality, why it is important, how it makes and changes your life, and also how it can achieve a lot of things. So many things that you are capable of doing, but just because, as you said in the conversation, we suppress a lot of things. We are told a lot of things, not to do this, not to do that. And as a man, as a woman, this is not only for women, to all the listeners, this is also for men who struggle on a regular day-to-day basis. But that's where we need all the guidance, and that's why we need these humans. The guide have come in the form of humans like Lona, who can, make your journey more pleasurable, more blissful, more pleasantable, because there is no right or wrong or good or bad, but it's all about how you can experience and become more transparent. Just like, you immerse yourself when you have a shower or when you go anywhere, you are just in that moment. This is exactly what I feel. Lona, this is amazing. I understood a lot. I hope my listeners understood as well. But whoever doesn't understand or wants some questions to be asked, please do write to us and we will forward that to Lona. Lona, thank you once again for this beautiful conversation. Your final word, I gave you the stage to talk one clear-cut message to in simple words
In simple words.
or whatever, when I say when I say simple words, it's like you can be
Uh-huh.
complicated. I can understand
Mm-hmm.
little bit.
Um, Interesting. It feels like give yourself the gift
Mhm.
of feeling your own touch.
Mm.
Even if it's just, when you're washing your hair, instead of it being a functional touch, you can shampoo, but take a moment and feel the touch on your scalp when you're
Mm.
putting your clothes on, to feel, your hands there, to take a moment and feel that
Mm.
aspect of where we often, as far as lovers, people, we touch a certain way. We
Mm.
actually touch the way that we want to be touched. So give
Mm.
yourself the touch that you would like.
Right.
Yeah.
Beautiful.
So it's really a way to, instead of looking outside, is
Mm.
be your own best lover. Come back and touch and be you.
Beautiful. With that note, yeah, self-awareness, self-love, and whatever self-touch you, as Lona mentioned, it's very important because we are spirits, and spirits talks about our own body. tools that we have been given. Spirit talks about like how to utilize our own tools that we have been given, whether it's our eyes, whether it's our ears, whether it's our tongue, whether it's our hands. And I think that's more important. Touch is very important. That's why we crave for that simple one hug, and
Mhm.
we need that every single moment. It's not a seasonal thing, hugs. So, to all the listeners, once again, thanks, Lona, for this beautiful, beautiful conversation. I'm loving it. And we will definitely get back to all of you once again with another amazing topic, which is the expertise of Lona rather than her life journey, which today we touched. But we understood that what is her life journey, where she is today, how she is today. So if she can do it, she can feel herself in that. You all can do. We all can do. So let's get back and we'll see you soon. Thank you so much.